Hello everybody, welcome to the Psychiatry Consortium webinar. So this is for our second call for proposals, which is currently live. And today we're going to be providing an overview of the scope and eligibility for funding. And we're going to include a little bit about the lessons that we've learned from our first call, which we launched in October last year. And there'll be a chance to ask questions. We'll take those at the end, but please feel free to type in any questions that you have in the Q&A box, and we'll get to those later. So on the call today, we've got myself, Laura Ajram. I'm the Psychiatry Consortium Programme Manager. We've also got Dan Bond, who's our Marketing and Engagement Operations Lead at Medicines Discovery Catapult. And he's here to help with any technical questions. So if you do have anything you need support with, then please feel free to send a message in the chat function, and we'll try and get back to you and help in any way we can. So today we're going to cover a little bit on the background, what the Psychiatry Consortium is about and why we're here, and go through the application process in some more detail. So we've covered in a previous webinar the eligibility and what we're looking for in a project. We're going to do a little bit more of a deeper dive into that today and just let you know what we've learned and what we're really shaping the scope proposals to show you really what we're looking for in applications in this round. We're also going to show you what the Psychiatry Consortium offers applicants and go in detail into what makes a strong application with some hints and tips at looking at the different questions in the application form itself. And as I said, there'll be time to take questions at the end, and we'll have about 15 minutes to go through any questions that you may have that I'm happy to answer live online now. But please do put those in the Q&A section and we'll get to those at the end. So today we're not intending to cover the review process in any level of detail really. We went into that in quite a bit of detail in the first webinar, which you can find and watch on our website, and I'll send you the link to that later. And we're not really going to go into any great level of detail about the terms and conditions of the Psychiatry Consortium, including intellectual property and the funding conditions. Those can be found in our terms and conditions on the website, in our frequently asked questions, and again in that webinar that has already been published. So today is really about focusing on the application process and what we're looking for there. So first of all, we'll just provide you with a little bit of background for those who are new to the Psychiatry Consortium. We're here really because there's a great challenge in the psychiatry drug discovery area. There's a lack of novel drug targets, and that combined with the challenge of validating them preclinically has really posed a problem for the academic and the industrial community. And that's meant that there's been reduced investment in drug discovery for psychiatry in this field. So the Psychiatry Consortium was really launched to take on this challenge and to look at the opportunities that have presented themselves in the last couple of years. In that we've got a huge increase in our understanding of disease biology in this area. And there's also a lot of emerging genetic data which we can use to catalyse that drug discovery. Pharma have become more interested in this area of late, and that allows renewed options for investment here as well. So the Psychiatry Consortium aims to validate therapeutic targets for psychiatric diseases. And we do that by reaching out to the academic community and bringing them to collaborate with our pharma partners. We provide opportunities for funding, which we're going to go into detail today how we do that. But moreover, we also allow for that collaboration between industry, SMEs, academics, and the charity. And we also provide that industry know-how, which we've been told time and time again that academics can really struggle with in linking up that drug discovery process and enabling new targets to be translated, particularly translated to an industry standard. So who are we? I'll just do a little bit of a talk about our partner organisations that make up the Psychiatry Consortium. We have two leading medical research charities, Alzheimer's Research UK and MQ Mental Health. And they are our charity partners who really anchor us to the patient need and give us that patient perspective. We also have 6 pharmaceutical partners, which are located worldwide, and they bring that industry expertise and the drug discovery support. The Psychiatry Consortium is managed by the Medicines Discovery Catapult and supported by the Wellcome Trust, who help fund our academic outreach and engagement activities. We also have 2 partner contract research organisations, or CROs as I'll refer to them, and that's Charles River and Evotech, who help with the drug development and discovery and the project development aspects of our work. So the Psychiatry Consortium is a strategic collaboration between these groups. And we act as a syndicate whereby we recognise the high risk associated with early drug discovery. And by working together, we sort of combine and share that risk, and we share the funding of these projects as well. So I'll go a little bit more into detail now in the application process, and a little bit about our funding cycle and how that works in practice. So this diagram here shows how every couple of months, we release a new call for funding and proposals from the research community. We then assess those proposals and present them to the pharma partners to see whether anyone's interested in taking them forwards. If they are, we develop them, we get approval for funding, and then they're launched and delivered in collaboration with our partner CROs. And the cycle then starts again, and we aim to have around 2 to 3 calls for funding per year. And the key stages of this that we're going to go into detail today are really in these stages 2 and 3. When we review these projects, they undergo an initial scope assessment, which is where myself as programme manager and the team at Medicines Discovery Catapult looks over these projects to check that they're within scope and within remit. If they are, we then present them to the partners and undertake further due diligence around the target that's been proposed and the study that's been proposed, and see whether anyone has provided any expression of interest. If 2 or more funding partners present an interest in the project, we then take it forward for development. And that's done really in collaboration with yourselves as the applicant and our partner CROs with input from the pharma partners. So this is really a very iterative and collaborative process. And what's really important to understand in terms of our funding and how it's run is that we don't really operate as a funding body alone. So yes, we have funds that we give out to academics and SMEs, but what we ask for is a very high level application in the first instance, which we then work with you to develop. And that proposal is then presented to the partners in its various drafts. So we present a first draft and then receive feedback and keep developing it until we get a great project together. Once that has approval by the partners, that's then taken forward for funding and launch. So the reason why a lot of you are probably here today is because we have a call that is currently open. It opened last Monday, and the deadline to apply to that current call is the 12th of June. So you still have a couple of weeks left to apply. If this isn't something that you're quite ready to embark on just yet, our next call this year will be in October 2020. So I'm just going to talk you through the key criteria for being eligible for one of these funding proposal schemes. So we welcome applications from universities and other research institutes worldwide. And we also accept applications from both academics and small companies. So SMEs, micro and medium-sized organisations may also be considered. And that could be as a standalone company, or they could do that in collaboration with an academic institution. Collaborative grants will also be considered, so multiple universities could come together to submit an application. And we recognise that this early drug discovery stage needs to be very collaborative, and we welcome different areas of expertise being brought together in these projects. But please be aware that if you are submitting a collaborative grant, it needs to be clear who is the lead organisation, and that is the organisation that we will deal with primarily. In terms of eligibility for the project, projects can last up to 3 years, and the total expected cost should be between £200,000 and £1 million. And we're primarily looking to fund early preclinical projects which are focused on the validation of novel drug targets for psychiatric conditions. So I'll go through the scope in some more detail now. First of all, the disease area. So we're primarily interested in addressing the unmet therapeutic needs of people with mental health conditions. So they include those listed on the slide here. It's not restricted to just these. We will review all mental health conditions that you submit to us, but there is a caveat that this is a psychiatric illness, condition, or symptom. So it could be psychiatric symptoms associated with dementia. We don't specifically look to fund projects that deal with the biology of dementia or Alzheimer's alone, but we are interested in looking at psychiatric symptoms that are associated with dementia. And in terms of the target, we're looking for targets that are novel, or in other words, not well studied. So that means targets that haven't been taken through the drug discovery process and have not been exploited in the clinic. In terms of the target, we'd like to see some initial studies which link it to human disease and some evidence of potential translation. So this is not always easy to show. If the target is completely novel, then there may not be that much information out there. And that's absolutely fine. We do just ask as a minimum that there is some evidence that links this target to the human condition. And in terms of the types of study that we're looking to fund, we're interested in studies of target identification studies of new biological targets. We're interested in early target validation studies which show target modulation having an effect, and identification of target modulation biomarkers which are relevant to disease. We're also interested in the generation of tools for target validation. So this could be by optimizing existing tool compounds or developing new tool compounds. And really what we're aiming for here is to support projects which aim to validate novel targets for psychiatry. Sometimes it's easier and a little bit more clear-cut to see the types of projects and the types of targets that we're absolutely not interested in. So I've listed some examples of those here. So as I've said, a real key consideration for us is novelty of the target. So we're not interested in projects which are on well-studied targets or pathways. We're also interested in those that are in the early phases and need our support. So we're not particularly interested in projects which have advanced chemistry, so those that already have lead or candidate molecules and just require those final studies. We're not interested in non-pharmacological interventions, so behavioural studies or the like. And we're also not willing to fund purely academic explorations of new animal or cellular models. So the caveat here is that we would consider projects like this if there was a clear drug discovery application and that this exploration would lead to or support the validation of a new target. And whilst we are interested in early target identification studies, we do caveat that with the desire that these studies have a general idea of a proposed target in mind. So projects that are mostly hypothesis generating studies would be out of scope for the Psychiatry Consortium. And we're not interested in studies which repurpose existing drugs alone. So well-known drugs being reappropriated for a different indication is not something that we're interested in. unless we're using an existing drug as a tool to validate new molecular targets, in which case the use of those existing drugs would be in scope. But as with everything here, it must be in the context of validating a novel target. And finally, we had a lot of questions surrounding clinical trials and clinical studies in our previous call. And just to stress here that we're not interested in taking forward any clinical trials or clinical studies which require collection of human samples. And we acknowledge that human samples are essential to validation of targets, but given the time needed to collect these samples and patient recruitment and the like, in the limited time that we have available for these projects, we ask that any human samples that are used in these projects that are proposed have already been collected or are in tissue banks or are awaiting access rather than collection. So I've spoken so far about what we expect from applicants. And I'll just do a very quick run through of what the Psychiatry Consortium offers applicants as well, because this is a very collaborative approach. So if successful, we provide applicants with access to that drug discovery expertise from our partners. We also supply drug discovery capabilities and support in actually prosecuting these targets and running these programs by using our specialized CRO partners. We provide access to commercial know-how and industry know-how. We provide project management resources through our managing partner, Medicines Discovery Catapult. Of course, we provide the project funding necessary to do this work. And we also provide a lot of support in the development stages of the project. So in the early application phase, as you'll see when we go through a little bit later on, we ask for very high level details, and we do that because we know that if a project is successful and reaches the development stage, we will support you by providing a lot of input into that stage and working with you to generate a robust plan. So I'm going to go through now some tips for writing a strong application, taking into consideration the things that we've learned from running the first call. So I'll take you through the areas of the application form which are really key and which we look at and take into consideration when reviewing these projects. So the first check that we do is to see whether the project's in scope, and we provide an initial scope assessment, which if you do apply, you will hear the results back from that within the first month, whether you pass that initial assessment. We then look at the project summary to see what the project looks like overall. We ask for a project plan to see an estimated idea of your timelines and how you would approach this target. And then we also ask for details of the expertise and resources that you have as an applicant and that you would like from the Psychiatry Consortium. So I'll go into those in a little bit more detail now. So obviously the first step is to pass that initial scope assessment, and that's a really crucial step to having a successful application. We have a quick scope assessment check on the website, which I'd recommend you do before applying. And this is really what we look for. So first of all, novelty is crucial for us. We need to know whether the target is novel for the indication. Secondly, we check whether the indication is in scope and whether it's a psychiatric disorder. And then thirdly, as I've mentioned, we then look to see whether there is evidence in humans which links that target to the disorder. We then go on to look at the study type, and we see whether the study is a target validation study, a study that's intended to optimize tools for validation, or a biomarker study, or alternatively a target identification study. So in order to pass the initial scope assessment, you must have all three of those first three checkboxes ticked, and then the type of study needs to be in scope. So we also ask for a project summary. And when writing this, this is much the same as you would write an abstract, but because we've tried to keep the application process quite concise at this point, it isn't like a normal grant application where you have pages and pages to write everything about the target background and your proposed idea. So the key here is being concise, but getting across these key points that we want to see. And the things that we're really interested in reading here are anything that is known about the target. There may not be that much if it's novel, that's fine, but anything you do know should go into the project summary, including all of that evidence that there is to support therapeutic modulation of the target and how that would be relevant to the disease area that you've proposed. And as I've mentioned a couple of times, it's crucial that you supply evidence to support the association of the target with the disease. So that could be cellular studies, it could be knockout mouse models, it could be GWAS data. It's crucial that as a bare minimum, you have some sort of human evidence that links it to the disease, but please also put in any other evidence that there is, any cellular evidence or animal model evidence. Another key part of the application form is that we ask you to outline a project plan. Now we do this in the knowledge that we're going to help you develop this, so that if there's gaps, then that's fine, but we do want you to identify where those gaps are and how we can help. So when writing this project plan, just bear in mind that this is a collaborative effort and we're there to support you. So it's absolutely fine if there's areas where you don't feel that your expertise will stretch to that particular part of the work package. That's absolutely fine. That is exactly what we're here to provide. And what we want to see in this section is an overview of your key milestones, what you expect to achieve and what your deliverables will be for each of those milestones. Some indication of estimated timescales, remembering that the whole project cannot be more than 3 years in length, and how those timelines fit together. And as I've said, it's really crucial to identify where the Psychiatry Consortium can support you here. And we'll go into that in a little bit more detail later on. So this doesn't have to be extensive, but we do look for a well-structured and easy to follow project plan with key outputs, key milestones, and key timelines all estimated within that section. So as I've said, the Psychiatry Consortium model is very collaborative, and we're looking out to the applications and the applicants to bring in their expertise in the knowledge that we will then share ours with you as well. So it's a really collaborative effort. So what we want to find out here is what expertise and resources the applicant is bringing to this project. This is split into 2 sections. We ask for you to explain the key expertise your group brings, and that would be expected to be a strong target and biology expertise, so real deep knowledge and understanding of the pathway, the biology, all that kind of thing that we would expect from a PI or any lead applicant proposing that they really know their stuff around this target. This is a good place to outline any key skills that you bring to the project as well, and any previous drug discovery expertise if you have it. And it's really important to caveat here that we do not expect or look for specifically people who have that expertise. We're here to provide support there. It's just interesting for us to know for our records if this is something that you've been engaged in before or whether you're a complete novice to this translational pathway. We also ask that you state the experimental resources that you have available as well. And these can be anything from tool compounds that you may already have in development, specialist cell lines or antibodies, any patient samples that have been retrospectively collected, any animal models, any relevant cellular models, biomarkers, anything like that that you can think that you will be bringing to this project as a group. So likewise, we also Hang on a second, I've just lost my place. Here we go. So we also expect the Psychiatry Consortium to give back and share our resources and our expertise as well. So there's a specific section in the application form where you can state what support you would like from the Psychiatry Consortium. Now, one thing that we found in previous applications is that a lot of people mentioned that one thing the Psychiatry Consortium could bring is project funding and drug discovery expertise. And of course, that is exactly what we'll do, and that's a given. But what we're looking for here is, what do you need in terms of our support outside of the funding? So as I've mentioned a few times now, we're not just a funding body, we're there to work collaboratively with you and share our knowledge and our expertise. And the Psychiatry Consortium, through its industry partners and through its CROs, can provide a whole host of project support. And that can range from in vitro biology knowledge to high throughput screening protocols, access to chemical or fragment libraries, support in medicinal chemistry and drug development, assay development, and much more besides. So if there's anything that your project is lacking and that you feel that there is a gap in your project plan, then just highlight at that point that that's something that you would be looking for the Psychiatry Consortium to support with. And the fact that if you have a gap in the project plan, you might think that that's a sort of a downside, but it's absolutely not. We have two really well-established and excellent CROs that we work with, and we do that so that we can help support you and fill those gaps. So here are some further resources that can help you with your application if you do choose to apply. We've just launched a new website with a whole source of application support and webinars, frequently asked questions forms, and that scope assessment checklist that I mentioned. So if you go to our website, psychiatryconsortium.org, click on the resources tab and you'll be able to find all of this there. You can also watch our first webinar, which goes into more detail about the actual process of the review, who's involved at which stage, and how the sort of funding model works, and exact timelines for how everything runs. You can also find on our website more detail on exactly what we're looking for in a project, which kind of summarises all of the things that I've said today. There's also our terms and conditions, which are very detailed, and really recommend that you read those before applying, certainly, and before coming to us with any questions, because they really are very comprehensive. And that covers all sorts of things in terms of how we run the application process, how we run the review process, and how projects are run, and all of the things from IP, ownership of results, rights, all of those types of things are all in our terms and conditions. So we ask that you read those before applying. If you go to the funding section on our website, this is where all of this information is located. You'll also see a link to our application portal. If you click apply here, that will take you directly to the application portal, and you'll be able to view the application form in full. So if you register for Submittable, which is our portal host, you can then view the whole application form. You don't need to apply at the moment. You can just look at all the questions. If you like, you can start filling it in and then come back, save it and come back to it. But it's a really good way of getting a sense of the kinds of things that we're looking for and the kinds of questions that we're asking, so that you can start to gather that information if you do want to apply for this current call. And finally, we're more than happy to discuss any projects that you have in mind with you. On our website and our contact form, you can email us, and I'll be happy to respond to any queries via email. You can also set up a phone call with me, and I'd be happy to talk through any ideas that you have for projects. And I will caveat that by saying that I'm more than happy to discuss your project with you, but I'm not able to provide yes or no answers over the phone as to whether this project is in scope and could get funded or not. And we just say that as a rule, that we will only review proposals in the sort of entirety and in the context of a full application. but I'm more than happy to have a quick sense check with you to see whether your idea would be within remit or something that we'd be looking to fund. And on our website as well, you can sign up to our mailing list, which will give you notifications when all of our funding calls come out, and any other resources that might be helpful. So any further webinars or any events that we have where we'll be discussing these areas. So I'll just run through some key dates for this call. The call is now open and the deadline is the 12th of June. So you've got about 5 weeks to put the application together. As I've said, it's not too lengthy, it's not too onerous to complete, but we do ask that you get those in sooner rather than later so that we can review them in good time. And that initial scope assessment, where it will be a clear-cut yes or no as to whether you're in scope and therefore eligible to progress to the review round, that will be done within a month. So we aim to have a result for you by the 12th of July as to whether your application is proceeding or whether it's not in scope for this current call. We then anticipate that successful projects will then go through the project development stage around throughout August 2020. And that's the time where we'll be working with the CRO and working together with project developers, team as a group, as a project team, to create a plan that's ready for presentation to the partners. And that will take several iterations, but that's a real learning process. And we found from our current call, our previous call, sorry, that going through this process has been really valuable for applicants because they get so much feedback along the way. And we aim to provide detailed feedback to all applicants. So if you do submit an application, then you should expect to hear detailed feedback if it goes to this project development stage of exactly what you could do to make the proposal better or how you could really enhance the project. And whether you're recommended to maybe apply for a further round or for the Psychiatry Consortium, or whether your project isn't considered to be in scope, that feedback is really valuable to then allow you to get that industry perspective on your project. And that can really help shape your proposals, either for future Psychiatry Consortium submissions or for other funding awards. We'd expect that projects from this round would be launched in autumn 2020. So it's quite an iterative process when we do select the project. Some projects will, the first draft of the project plan will be close to perfection and we'll be able to start quickly. Some take a little bit longer to develop, so that process can take a couple of months. But we would aim to launch projects around 3 months after the deadline closes. So that puts us into sort of autumn 2020. So hopefully that was useful. Thank you very much for your attention and for listening throughout that. And I'd be happy to take any questions that you do have. Please just pop those in the Q&A. So one of the questions that I have received here is on the role of the CRO, and to elaborate a little bit further on that. And we've had several questions prior to this about how essential the CRO is in their development. And I think that really comes down to understanding how the Psychiatry Consortium works as a collaborative entity. The CRO is involved in the due diligence that we do on those targets that you propose. So if a target is in scope, it then goes forward and is taken for further review. And the CROs support us in that review process by helping us to assess the scientific due diligence of that target. And we then anticipate that the project development is very heavily involved with the CROs, and that's a real collaboration between the PI and the CRO, and that's a real sharing of experiences. So we expect that the academic will bring their brilliant academic proposal, and then we can add in where necessary, or we can support the delivery of any extra or supplementary work packages that can be done using the CRO's expertise. I've got a further question on including small companies. So we've always been open to small companies. We're available to review any application from either SMEs or academic applicants. What we do ask though is that small companies read our terms and conditions carefully so that we can get a good understanding of what's expected in terms of ownership of results and IP. And that's not normally a real problem for academic institutions, but sometimes when SMEs want to commercialise their outputs themselves, then this may not be the right funding source for them. But we are definitely open to SMEs, and we do just ask that you check our terms and conditions carefully. A question on if there are any restrictions on how the funding can be spent. There are, it's similar to a normal funding grant in that we split our costs into sort of staff, consumables, animal costs, and the like. So there's no real restriction in that sense. We can provide salary costs for staff to do specific areas of work if needed. It's sometimes easier in terms of getting a project up and running if you have someone in mind that's able to be seconded to do this work rather than starting the recruitment process from scratch. But if you did need to do that, then that wouldn't preclude you. Other than that, there isn't really any restriction on how the funding can be spent, no. There's another question on project management and what's involved in that, what kind of support you get there. So as the program manager, I am heavily involved in supporting and helping to run these projects. So I act as the key coordinator between the pharma partners that are interested in funding the projects, yourself as the applicant, who's obviously going to be doing quite a lot of the work for the project, and the CRO, who's also going to be helping support that work. So I'm there to coordinate that activity. I coordinate the review process and support with sort of the project development to help you write a project proposal that's going to be the best as it can be. And in terms of when it actually comes to delivering the project, we have dedicated support available for you to keep organising those monthly meetings between the CRO, the PIs, different members of the application group, so different areas of the university or different PIs, if there are different people leading on different areas of the work packages. We sort of coordinate all of that and support to ensure that the project runs to time and to budget. There's a question here about discussing which types of projects were funded in the first round to give an example of what is in scope. Unfortunately, I'm not able to share those details with you yet, as we're just in the process of finalising the project that we're hoping to take forward. That's still in development at the moment. As soon as we have confirmation of funding for that project, the details of the project and its sort of outline will be made available on our website. I think we just have a couple of minutes left, so if anybody has any final questions, please do submit them in the Q&A. I'd be happy to answer them. A question about using part of the grant to pay scientific consultants who are external to the institution and external to the consortium scientific team. I think inquiries like this are so project specific. I'd be happy to have a discussion with you about exactly what advice and support that external consultant will be bringing to the project. And why that couldn't be met by the existing project team. But we really do take the approach that we judge everything on a project by project basis. So if it's the best thing to do for the science of the project and in order to progress that project, then we are open to considerations. Yeah. But I'd be happy to, whoever posted that question, I'd be more than happy to have a chat with you about that if you did decide to submit. We've just got 2 more minutes, so if anybody wants to submit any final questions, I would be happy to answer them. If not, then please feel free to have a think about the things that we've discussed in this webinar. The slides and the audio recording will be available afterwards, so feel free to listen back to it. Have a look at our website. There's a list of frequently asked questions there, so it may be that your question's already been covered on the website. Or alternatively, do get in touch via our contact page on the website, and I'd be happy to have any further discussions with you around any project-specific questions. So I've just put a poll up just to get a quick idea of the kind of audience that we've got on the call at the moment. So if you could just answer that poll, that'd be really helpful. Okay, and as there's no more questions just now, I will close the session there. Thank you so much for listening, and feel free to go and visit the website or get in touch with us if you need any more information. Thank you.